Hello and welcome to the Unitrends learning series about the installation of ReliableDR. So in this video we're going to go through how to install ReliableDR. It's a very simple, very quick process. You need to have obviously one of our supported operating systems. So basically Windows 2008 Release 2 or newer. So Release 2 R2 SP1, 2012 R2. Now, if you're installing onto 2008 Release 2, you don't have to install any prerequisites. If you're installing onto 2012 or newer, then you have to manually do some prerequisites that are in a separate video. They're also obviously in all of our documentation. So with that, let's move on to the installation itself. So I've got my 2012 Release 2 server. I've done the prerequisites that I need to do. So literally, I've copied the installer to my local desktop. I right click on this and say Run as Administrator. This is a very simple process. Now it is going to do certain things as part of this process and installations, etc. So when you first run it up, it's going to ask you, where do you want to install this? Is it onto the C drive? So for the web application itself and the ReliableDR services, you can put them on a D drive, an E drive, it doesn't make any difference. So you choose where you want to put them. You can choose whether you use a local SQL server or a local SQL Server instance, should I say, which this is going to install as part of this, so SQL Express effectively. Or do you want to use a remote database? Now, I recommend to people, if you can, leave it on the ReliableDR server, because then it's self-contained. Otherwise, you're reliant on that database being available in the event of a disaster. So when you choose next, it goes off, it's going to go and check the IIS and the .NET features, just to make sure that you've done those prerequisites. If this comes up failed, so where you've got these blue markers, if I select it, it says IIS is installed. If it says failed, it'll tell you what's missing. So if you missed something, missed one of the tick boxes, select that, go back and change it and hit rerun. You don't have to restart the whole application install. The next thing is choose next. You've obviously got some default ports that it uses. So HTTP, so 80 and 443, but also scheduler ports. So if you go off and it'll validate the ports for you. Now port 80 by default is used for the default website. Now I'm quite happy for this to take over the default website in this installation. You might want to put it on a different port. It's up to, again, that's up to you. It's fully supported. So if I choose yes, choose next, the next thing it's going to do, as I say, it needs SQL Server on this box. So it's now going to go off and actually set up that SQL Server instance. So now that's finished, it's now just going through, then basically validating the install, copying the files, etc. onto the device and updating things like components, installing the relevant services, all of our sort of array-based adapters, everything else is all being installed as part of this process. So the proxy service is in, the scheduler service is now in, it's just starting these. It's created the website, and basically that's it, finish. So what you would do now is you can open up a web browser either on this machine or another machine, pointed at the website that you asked it to create. So if you left it as port 80, you can just point it straight at the machine's IP address or the DNS name. Be aware the first time it starts, because it is IIS, the web services have to boot up and start up. So you should end up with a screen that looks something like this. And then of course you've got the ability then to log in. So admin and password are the default ones. And then you can go on to the basic configuration and more advanced configurations. So that concludes the installation of ReliableDR. So as I say, very quick, very easy. Just make sure you've done the prerequisites, run that installer. If you want to select just all the defaults, go ahead. And then afterwards, log into the website and continue your configuration. Okay, so thank you very much, and come back and visit one of the other videos in this series.